Let go or be dragged. The monastery bells rang through the morning mist as Master Kenji swept the stone path. Nearby, his student Takeshi sat beneath a cherry tree, his face twisted in concentration, fists clenched white. "Master," Takeshi called out, voice tight with frustration. "I've been meditating for hours, but I cannot find peace. My brother insulted our family yesterday. He disrespected everything our father built. How can I let go of such anger?" Master Kenji continued sweeping, saying nothing. "Master, did you hear me?" "I heard you," Kenji replied softly. "Tell me, how long ago did this argument occur?" "Yesterday afternoon. But that doesn't matter. What he said, and your brother, where is he now?" "He returned to the city last night." "So your brother spoke words yesterday, in a place he no longer is, and then left. Yet here you sit, carrying those words as if they were stones in your robe." Master Kenji resumed sweeping. "Tell me, who is dragging whom?" Takeshi's mouth opened, then closed. A flush crept up his neck. "Come, walk with me." They descended the path into the forest, eventually reaching a river. The current was strong, churning white around rocks. On the far bank stood an ancient oak, its massive roots exposed and wrapped tightly around several large stones. "Do you see that tree?" Master Kenji asked. "Yes, master. Look at its roots gripping those rocks. That tree has held them for perhaps 100 years. Now tell me, does the tree possess the rocks, or do the rocks possess the tree?" Takeshi frowned. "The tree holds the rocks. Look closer. See how the tree leans? The weight of those rocks has slowly pulled it off balance. Year after year, it has spent energy holding them. Energy that could have gone to growing taller, stronger. It holds the rocks. Yes, but at what cost? The tree could release them," Takeshi said slowly. "But it chooses not to. The tree knows only gripping. It is its nature." Master Kenji tossed a small stone into the water. "But you have a choice, the tree does not. You can open your hand." They turned back toward the monastery. When they reached the meditation garden, Kenji stopped. "Tell me about this argument. What exactly did your brother say?" The words tumbled out. "He said our father wasted his life in devotion. That monasteries are filled with cowards running from the real world. He said," Takeshi's voice cracked. "He said I was dead to him." "And you have replayed these words how many times since yesterday?" "I don't know. Hundreds, perhaps." "So your brother spoke them once, and you have spoken them to yourself hundreds of times. Who, then, has hurt you more?" Takeshi stopped walking, eyes widening. Master Kenji led him to a small pond beside the meditation hall. Its surface was perfectly still, reflecting the sky like polished glass. He picked up a stone and threw it into the center. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles, disturbing the reflection. They watched as the ripples reached the edges and slowly dissipated. "The stone enters the water only once," Kenji said. "But the ripples continue. Eventually, though, what happens? They fade. The water becomes still again. Yes, the water does not hold the memory of the stone. It accepts the disturbance, experiences it fully, and returns to stillness. But tell me, what would happen if every time the water became still, someone threw the same stone again?" "The ripples would never stop." "Precisely. You are throwing the stone yourself, again and again. Your brother threw it once and walked away. But you remain here, repeating his motion." Takeshi's eyes filled with tears. "But master, how do I stop? Every time I try not to think about it, the words come back. Tell me how to make it stop." "Ah, now you ask the right question. But you have it backwards. You cannot make it stop by fighting it. You stop by stopping." "I don't understand." The master walked to a small maple tree beside the pond. He gripped one of its branches and pulled it down, bending it unnaturally toward the ground. "What happens if I hold this branch here?" "It stays bent." "And what happens when I let go?" It springs back up. Master Kenji released the branch. It whipped upward and swayed gently before settling. The branch does not struggle to return to its place. It simply does so when the force releases. Your mind is the same. It will return to peace naturally, but only when you stop forcing it to stay in turmoil. But I'm not trying to stay in turmoil. I'm trying to escape it. Are you? Or are you trying to escape by fighting? Every time you think, I should not be angry, you are picking up the stone again. Every time you replay the argument to find where you should have responded differently, you are dragging yourself back to yesterday. Takeshi sank onto a bench, head in his hands. Then, what should I do? Just pretend it didn't hurt? No. Feel the hurt. Acknowledge it. My brother's words hurt me. This is truth. But then see the hurt as it is. Just hurt. Not a stone you must carry everywhere. Not a rope binding you to yesterday. Just hurt, arising and passing, like ripples on water. A breeze stirred the cherry blossoms overhead, and petals drifted down. Master Kenji caught one in his palm. See this blossom? It held tight through winter and spring. It bloomed in its season, beautiful and perfect. And now, its time has come to let go. Does the tree mourn? Does the blossom resist? No. It falls, and in falling, it is perfect. He opened his hand, and the wind carried the petal away, tumbling through the air until it landed softly on the pond's surface. But I am not a blossom, master. No, you are something far more capable. A blossom has no choice but to let go. You have the choice, which makes your letting go infinitely more meaningful. They sat in silence. Takeshi watched the petal float on the water, watched it drift toward the edge, watched it finally settle against the bank, still and peaceful. Master, how many times will I have to let go? Kenji laughed warmly. Oh, my student. You will have to let go every day, every hour, every moment. This is not a task you complete once. The question is not, how do I let go once and forever? The question is, can I let go right now, in this moment? That sounds exhausting. Does it? Tell me, is it more exhausting to let go moment by moment, or to carry everything you've ever held onto, growing heavier each day until you cannot move at all? Takeshi smiled despite himself. No, master. Come. I will tell you a secret. Kenji began walking toward the meditation hall. You have already let go of thousands of things in your life. Every breath breathed in, breathed out. Let go. Every step lifted your foot, placed it down, let go. Took another step. You have let go of every meal, every sunset, every conversation, every moment of your entire life. You are, in truth, a master of letting go. You simply forgot. They reached the hall where other students were gathering. Master Kenji paused at the entrance. Here is your practice for today. Every time you notice yourself replaying the argument, simply say, "This is yesterday's stone. I set it down now." Then return your attention to your breath, not to fight the memory, just to acknowledge it and return. Can you do this? Takeshi bowed. I will try, master. Good. And Takeshi? When you see your brother again, you will have a choice. You can meet him carrying yesterday's stones, bent under their weight. Or you can meet him with open hands, ready to begin again. The choice is always yours. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Takeshi sat in meditation. The memory came, as he knew it would. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest, but this time, he noticed something new. The sensation arose, peaked, and began to fade. Not because he forced it away, but because this was its nature, arising and passing, like ripples on water, like petals on the wind. This is yesterday's stone, he whispered. I set it down now. He returned his attention to his breath. In, out, let go. The memory came again, and again, he set it down. Not perfectly, not easily, but he set it down. The bells rang for evening prayers. Takeshi rose from his cushion, surprised to find that his legs felt light. His shoulders, rigid with tension that morning, now hung loose and easy. As he walked to the dining hall, he passed the cherry tree. Most blossoms had fallen, carpeting the ground in pink and white. He paused, looking at them. They didn't look lost in their falling. They looked free. Takeshi bent down and picked up a single petal. He held it in his palm for a moment, then opened his hand and let the wind take it. It tumbled away into the dusk, and he watched it go without sadness, without grasping, just watching, just letting go. For the first time since his brother's visit, Takeshi felt something like peace. Not the absence of hurt. The hurt was still there, a dull ache beneath his ribs, but it was no longer dragging him. He was no longer dragging it. It simply was, and he was, and the distance between them was growing with each breath, each step, each moment he chose to open his hand. That night, as he lay in his small room, the memory came again. His brother's face, twisted with anger. His brother's words, sharp as broken glass. But this time, Takashi noticed something new. Between the memory and his reaction to it, there was a space, small but undeniable. A moment where he could choose. "This is yesterday's stone," he said softly into the darkness. "I set it down now." He slept deeply and did not dream. The next morning, Master Kenji was in the garden when Takeshi arrived. Takeshi approached and bowed. "Master, thank you for yesterday's teaching." "And what did you learn?" Takeshi thought for a moment. "I learned that I have been dragging myself through yesterday, over and over. I learned that letting go is not a single act but a practice, repeated as many times as necessary. And I learned that the weight I've been carrying was always optional." Master Kenji smiled broadly. "Good. Very good. Now you are ready for the hardest part. There's more. You have learned to let go of the stones you know you carry. Now you must learn to let go of the stones you don't realize you're carrying. The old grudges, the small resentments, the ways you've been hurt that you've forgotten but your body remembers. This is the work of a lifetime. But it begins here, with learning to be still, to watch the ripples fade, to trust that your natural state is peace, not turmoil, and that peace will return when you stop disturbing it." They sat together in meditation as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And in the stillness, Takeshi felt it. That natural peace Master Kenji had spoken of. Always there, always waiting, like still water beneath the ripples. Not something to achieve or create, just something to stop covering up, something to let be. Chen, a farmer, lived in a village between hills and forests. He simply lived each day as it came, tending his modest plot of land with quiet dedication. Chen had one prized possession, a beautiful white horse that had been in his family for 3 generations. The horse was strong, intelligent, and had helped Chen plow his fields for many years. The villagers often remarked that Chen was fortunate to have such a magnificent animal. One spring morning, Chen went to the stable and found the gate hanging open. The white horse was gone. He searched the nearby fields and forest paths, but there was no sign of the animal. It had simply vanished into the mountain wilderness. When the neighbors heard the news, they gathered at Chen's home, shaking their heads in sympathy. "Such terrible luck," said the baker's wife. "That horse was worth a fortune. How will you manage the spring plowing?" "This is a disaster," added the blacksmith. "You must be devastated." Chen listened quietly, then replied with a slight smile. "Maybe so, maybe not." The villagers exchanged puzzled glances. How could he be so calm? They left, muttering about Chen's strange attitude. A week passed. Chen worked his fields with his own hands, using a hand plow and twice the effort. Then one evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and gold, Chen heard the thunder of hooves. He looked up to see his white horse galloping across the meadow, and behind it ran 6 wild horses. magnificent creatures with flowing manes and powerful bodies. The white horse had found a wild herd in the mountains and led them back to Chen's farm. By morning, Chen had managed to corral all 7 horses in his expanded paddock. The villagers rushed over, their faces bright with excitement. "Incredible fortune," exclaimed the mayor. "You've become the wealthiest man in the village overnight. 7 horses. You could sell them, start a breeding business, hire help for your farm." "What amazing luck," the merchant agreed, already calculating profits. "You're truly blessed." Chen fed the horses quietly, then turned to his neighbors. "Maybe so, maybe not," he said. Again, the villagers left shaking their heads at his peculiar response. How could gaining 6 horses be anything but wonderful fortune? Several weeks later, Chen's only son, a strong young man of 20, decided to train one of the wild horses. The young man was skilled and patient, but this particular horse was spirited and untamed. During the 3rd training session, the horse reared suddenly, and Chen's son was thrown hard to the ground. The village doctor was called immediately. After examining the young man, he delivered grave news. The son's leg was badly broken in 2 places. Even with the best care, he would walk with a limp for the rest of his life, and he would never regain his full strength. The villagers gathered once more at Chen's home, but this time their faces were somber. "What horrible misfortune," the doctor said quietly. "Your only son, crippled, he was to be your help in old age. If only those wild horses had never come," the baker's wife lamented. "This is a tragedy." "Now you have no one to help work the land," added another neighbor. "How terrible for your family." Chen sat by his son's bedside, adjusting the blankets. He looked at the concerned faces around him and said softly, "Maybe so, maybe not." The villagers left more confused than ever. His son was crippled. How could this be anything but a disaster? 2 months passed. Chen's son began to heal, though slowly. He could not walk properly, but his spirits remained surprisingly good, and he learned to help his father in other ways, mending tools, preparing meals, keeping accounts of the farm's supplies. Then one morning, the sound of drums echoed through the valley. Imperial soldiers marched into the village, banners flying. The emperor had declared war with a neighboring kingdom, and all able-bodied young men were being conscripted into the army. The soldiers went door to door, and within hours, every healthy young man in the village, the blacksmith's 3 sons, the merchant's twin boys, the mayor's nephew, the farmer's sons from the neighboring properties, all were lined up and marched away to war. When the soldiers came to Chen's home and saw his son's twisted leg and halting walk, they shook their heads and moved on. The young man was deemed unfit for military service. That evening, the village was filled with the sound of weeping. Mothers clutched their daughters. Fathers stared into empty spaces where their sons had stood. Everyone knew the terrible truth. The war was brutal and far away. Most of these young men would never return home. The next day, the baker's wife came to Chen's door, her eyes red from crying. She looked at Chen's son sitting peacefully in the garden, working on a bridal repair. "I said such foolish things," she whispered. "When your son was injured, I called it a tragedy. Now I understand. His injury has saved his life." Chen offered her tea, and they sat together in the quiet morning. "Maybe so, maybe not," Chen said gently. The woman looked startled. "Surely this time you must see it's a blessing? All our sons are gone, but yours remains safe at home." Chen poured the tea with steady hands. "My son is here today, and I am grateful for this moment. But who can say what tomorrow brings? The soldiers may return, the war may end quickly, and the young men might come home. Or my son's leg may worsen, or perhaps something entirely unexpected will happen. I have learned that fortune and misfortune are 2 sides of a coin that never stops flipping. What appears to be one often becomes the other, and then changes again." The woman sipped her tea in silence, considering his words. Chen continued. When my horse ran away, I felt the loss. When it returned with 6 more, I felt joy. When my son was injured, I felt fear. When the soldiers passed him by, I felt relief. But underneath all these feelings, I've learned something. I cannot know the true nature of any event when it occurs. What seems like the end of the story is always just the middle. Life is longer and more complicated than any single moment of good or bad fortune. So you feel nothing when these things happen? The woman asked. You don't care? Oh, I feel everything. Chen smiled. I am human, but I try not to judge too quickly. I try not to declare that I know whether something is ultimately good or bad, because I have learned that I simply don't know. None of us do. The universe is still writing the story. Months passed. The war dragged on. Some villages lost all their young men. Chen's son grew stronger in other ways, in wisdom, in patience, in his ability to help his father not through physical strength but through careful thinking and planning. Together, they managed the farm and the 7 horses, which did indeed become a source of steady income. Years later, when the war finally ended, only a handful of young men returned to the village. They were changed, hardened by battle, haunted by things they'd seen. The village that had once been filled with laughter and youth was now quiet, marked by loss. Chen's son, though he walked with a limp, had spent those years at peace, learning, growing, and eventually meeting and marrying a kind woman from a nearby village. They gave Chen 3 healthy grandchildren who filled the farm with joy. The villagers no longer questioned Chen's wisdom. When they faced their own challenges, a failed harvest, a broken engagement, a promising opportunity, an unexpected windfall, they would often visit the old farmer. Should I rejoice? They would ask. Should I despair? And Chen, now with silver in his hair, would pour them tea and smile. Maybe so, he would say. Maybe not. But you can choose to be present with whatever comes, to respond with wisdom rather than judgment, and to remember that no chapter is the whole book. The farmer's fortune, as the villagers came to understand, was not his horses, or his son, or his land. His fortune was his perspective, his ability to hold both joy and sorrow lightly, to understand that life's apparent curses and blessings often swap places like dancers in an endless dance. And in this understanding, Chen had found something more valuable than all the horses in the world. He had found peace. As the village storyteller would later tell it, Chen lived to a ripe old age, surrounded by family, his fields still tended by his son and grandsons. And whenever anyone asked him if he had lived a good life, he would smile that same knowing smile and say, maybe so, maybe not, but it has been my life, and I have lived it fully.
The cup already full? Stop overthinking. Master Tanaka's monastery sat nestled between 2 mountains, where morning mist rolled through bamboo groves like breath through lungs. For 40 years, he had taught students the art of stillness, yet none troubled him quite like Kenji. Kenji arrived on an autumn evening, his expensive clothes dusty from travel, his mind dustier still with questions. He was a scholar from the capital, celebrated for his philosophical treatises, invited to lecture at the imperial court, yet beneath his accolades lay a gnawing emptiness that no amount of knowledge could fill. Master, Kenji began, barely through the monastery gates. I have come seeking enlightenment. I have studied under 12 teachers, read 3,000 texts, and mastered 4 schools of thought. Yet I find no peace. My mind races constantly. I analyze every action, question every decision, doubt every conclusion. Please, teach me to still this chaos. Master Tanaka smiled gently and gestured toward the tea house. First, let us have tea. They sat on woven mats as the master prepared the ceremony with practiced grace. The kettle sang its steam song. The matcha powder whispered against porcelain. Every movement was deliberate, yet effortless. Tell me, Master Tanaka said, beginning to pour tea into Kenji's cup, about your studies. Kenji leaned forward eagerly. Well, Master, I have explored the paradoxes of Zhuangzi, contemplated the void teachings of the Buddha, examined the Confucian principles of harmony, and recently, I have been developing my own synthesis that... He continued talking as Master Tanaka kept pouring. The tea reached the rim of the cup. And furthermore, I believe that the integration of these seemingly contradictory philosophies requires a meta-framework that the tea spilled over the edge, pooling on the wooden tray, accounting for both the absolute and relative truths, while maintaining the tea streamed onto the mat. Still, the master poured. Master! Kenji jumped back. The cup is overflowing. Stop pouring! Master Tanaka set down the teapot and looked at Kenji with eyes like still water. Like this cup, he said quietly. Your mind is already full of ideas, full of knowledge, full of questions, full of seeking. How can I teach you anything when there is no room to receive it? Kenji opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. For perhaps the first time in years, he had nothing to say. Your problem, the master continued, is not lack of understanding. It is too much understanding. You have filled your cup so completely with thoughts about water that you have forgotten what it means to simply drink. Over the following weeks, Master Tanaka gave Kenji no teachings. Instead, he gave him tasks. Sweep the garden path. Kenji swept, but his mind churned. What is the deeper meaning of this? Is the path a metaphor for life's journey? Is the sweeping an exercise in mindfulness? Should I contemplate each stroke? His sweeping was clumsy, distracted. Leaves he had cleared blew back immediately. The master watched from the veranda. You are not sweeping. You are thinking about sweeping. These are different things entirely. Chop vegetables for dinner. Kenji chopped, but his thoughts raced. Is there a correct way to hold the knife? What would the ancient master say about the relationship between the blade and the vegetable? Perhaps this is about cutting through illusion? His cuts were uneven. His finger nearly met the blade twice. You are not chopping, Master Tanaka observed. You are having a philosophical debate with a carrot. The carrot is winning. Sit in meditation. Kenji sat, but his mind exploded with noise. Am I sitting correctly? Is my breathing right? Should I count breaths? Should I follow thoughts or release them? What is the sound of one hand clapping? No, focus. But focus on what? The void? But isn't focusing on the void still focusing on something? After an hour, he stood more agitated than when he began. Master, I cannot do it, Kenji confessed, frustration cracking his scholarly composure. My mind will not be still. Every moment, I am analyzing, questioning, doubting. When I try to meditate, I think about meditation. When I try to be present, I think about presence. It is torture. Yes, Master Tanaka said simply. Because you are trying. But should I not try? How can I improve without effort? Come, the master said. Walk with me. They walked through the monastery grounds in silence. The afternoon sun filtered through maple leaves, painting the path in gold and crimson. A stream bubbled nearby. Somewhere, a bird called. After a long while, the master asked, Are you thinking right now? Yes, Kenji admitted. I am thinking about how I should not be thinking. I am trying to experience this moment, but instead I am thinking about experiencing it. And now? Still thinking, analyzing, wondering if I am walking correctly, if I am breathing correctly, if I am... Do you know, the master interrupted gently, that you have been walking perfectly this entire time? Your feet have not stumbled once. Your breath has continued without your management. Your heart has beaten without your instruction. All of this happened while you were busy overthinking. Kenji stopped walking. Your body already knows how to live, Master Tanaka continued. It is your mind that keeps interfering, like a nervous servant who cannot stop asking the master if he is happy, thereby ensuring he never can be. Something shifted in Kenji's chest. A tiny crack in a great dam. But master, how do I stop? The thinking is automatic. Constant. You do not stop thinking, the master replied. That would be like stopping the stream from flowing. You simply stop believing you must control every thought, analyze every moment, solve every problem. You let the stream flow where it flows. But then, how do I know I'm doing anything correctly? Master Tanaka laughed, a sound like wind through bamboo. Correctly according to what? Your thoughts about correctness? And where did those thoughts come from? Other thoughts. It is thoughts judging thoughts, all the way down. You have built a prison of your own mind and locked yourself inside. They reached the monastery's meditation garden, where a small Zen garden had been raked into patterns around stones. Master Tanaka picked up the rake. Watch, he said. He pulled the rake through the gravel in smooth, simple lines. No hesitation, no second guessing, just movement. Now you? He handed Kenji the rake. Kenji took it, and immediately his mind flooded with questions. What pattern should I make? What do the lines symbolize? Is there a traditional method? What if I do it wrong? He stood frozen. You are thinking again, the master observed. I do not know what pattern to make. Then do not make a pattern. Make a line. But what kind of line? Any line. One line. Stop asking what to do and do something. Trembling slightly, Kenji pulled the rake. The line was crooked, uncertain. It is imperfect, he said. It is complete, the master corrected. You finished it. That is more than most achieve, lost as they are in the paralysis of seeking perfection. Over the following days, something began to shift. Kenji still thought constantly, but occasionally, he would catch himself in the act of overthinking. And in those moments of catching, there was a brief gap, a space where no thinking occurred, only awareness. Sweeping the path one morning, his mind began its usual analysis. Am I holding the broom correctly? Is there a better sweeping technique? But then he noticed, I am thinking about sweeping again. And in that noticing, just for a second, he simply swept. One stroke, pure action, no commentary. The feeling was like surfacing from deep water to gulp sweet air. Master, he said excitedly when he found Tanaka. I did it! I swept without thinking. Well, I thought a little, but then I noticed I was thinking, and then I wasn't thinking, at least not about sweeping, though I suppose I was thinking about not thinking, but he stopped, hearing himself. Master Tanaka's eyes crinkled with amusement. And now? Now I am overthinking again. Yes, but you noticed. This noticing is the path, not the absence of thought, but awareness of thought. And in that awareness, space appears. Space to simply be. But how do I maintain it? How do I make it last? By not trying to maintain it. The moment you grasp for it, you are thinking again. Let it come. Let it go. Like breathing. You do not try to breathe every breath perfectly. You simply breathe. A question arose in Kenji that he had never considered. Master, what if there is nothing wrong with me? What if all this seeking, all this effort to fix myself, is the actual problem? Master Tanaka bowed his head slightly. Now you are beginning to see. But I have wasted so much time. Years of study, all those teachers, all those... And there you go again, the master said gently. Now you are overthinking your overthinking. You are judging the journey instead of recognizing that it has brought you here, to this moment, to this understanding. Even your mistakes were necessary, especially your mistakes. That evening, as Kenji sat for meditation, he made a different choice. Instead of fighting his thoughts, instead of trying to still them or control them or analyze them, he simply watched them. Thought arose. Am I sitting correctly? He watched it pass like a cloud. Another thought. This is not working. He watched it too. And another. When will I finally get it? And in the watching, something miraculous happened. The thoughts continued, but he was no longer trapped inside them. He was the sky, and they were weather passing through. The cup began to empty. Not because he emptied it, but because he stopped constantly refilling it. On his last morning at the monastery, Kenji found Master Tanaka preparing tea once more. They sat in comfortable silence as the water heated. Master, Kenji said, when I arrived, you told me my cup was full, but I think I misunderstood. The cup was not full of knowledge. It was full of the belief that I needed more knowledge, full of seeking, full of the story that I was broken and needed fixing. Yes, the master said, pouring tea into a cup this time, stopping at the perfect moment. And now I see that I was never broken. I was just overthinking everything. What will you do now? Kenji lifted the cup and drank. The tea was perfect not because it was made perfectly, but because he tasted it fully, without thoughts crowding between him and the experience. I will return to the capital, he said. I will continue my work, but I will do it differently. I will let myself be imperfect. I will let my thoughts come and go. I will try to remember that sometimes, the answer is not to figure everything out, but to simply take the next step. And when you forget, the master asked with a knowing smile, then I will remember again, and forget again, and remember again. I think that is the path. Master Tanaka set down his cup. Before you go, one final teaching. Kenji leaned forward attentively. The master sat silently. Kenji waited and waited. Finally, he laughed. There is no teaching, is there? You are just sitting there. I am just sitting here, Master Tanaka confirmed. And you are just sitting there, and the tea is just cooling in the pot. This is the teaching. This is always the teaching. Kenji bowed deeply. When he rose, his cup was empty, and for the first time in many years, that emptiness felt full. As he walked down the mountain path, his mind began its familiar chatter. Did I learn enough? Will I remember these lessons? What if I slip back into old patterns? But then he noticed he was thinking, and in that noticing, there was a space. And in that space, just for a moment, there was nothing to figure out. Just one step, then another, all the way home.
The empty boat, anger and ego. James had been rear-ended at a red light, verbally destroyed by his boss in front of the entire team, and cut off by 3 different drivers on his way to the lake. His jaw ached from clenching his teeth, and his hands trembled with rage. "They're all idiots," he muttered, yanking his kayak from the roof rack. Every single one of them. The lake was his refuge, the one place where people couldn't disrespect him. Here, he was in control. He shoved off from shore, his paddle slicing through water with angry precision. The evening sun painted everything gold, but James saw only red. His mind replayed the day on endless loop, his boss's condescending smirk, the driver who'd flipped him off, the insurance adjuster who'd put him on hold for 45 minutes. "Unbelievable," he said to the empty water. "Absolutely unbelievable." He paddled harder, trying to exhaust the anger from his system. His therapist had suggested this. "Physical activity," she'd said. "Channel the energy constructively." But it wasn't working. The rhythm of paddling only amplified his racing thoughts. A heron took flight from shore. James barely noticed. He was too busy imagining the perfect comeback to his boss. The devastating reply that would make the whole office gasp, that would make her face crumble thunk. Something slammed into his kayak, jolting him sideways. Water sloshed over the rim. James grabbed the sides to steady himself, heart hammering. "What the hell?" he shouted, spinning around. An empty rowboat bobbed peacefully beside him, its oars resting in their locks, drifting on the gentle current. No one was in it. No one had been steering it. It had simply floated into him. James stared at the empty boat, his anger searching for a target and finding only wood and air. "Are you all right?" The voice came from shore. An elderly man sat on a weathered bench, a fishing rod against his knee. He wore a simple jacket, and that had seen better decades. "Some idiot left their boat untied," James called back sharply. He pushed the rowboat away roughly. The old man acknowledged. But no one to be angry at. What? The boat. Empty. Nothing to be angry at. James paddled toward shore, drawn by the strangeness of the conversation. Up close, the old man had the kind of face that suggested he'd spent more time laughing than worrying. "I'm not angry at the boat," James said defensively. "I'm just saying someone was irresponsible." "Ah, and if someone had been in the boat? If someone had rammed you deliberately? Then I'd tell them exactly what I thought." The old man smiled slightly. "I'm sure you would. May I ask you something?" James shrugged, still in his kayak, bobbing in shallow water. "When the empty boat hit you, for that first moment before you looked, what did you feel?" "Annoyed. Obviously." "No," the old man said gently. "Before the story, before the blame, in that very first instant." James paused. "Just surprised, I guess. Jolted. Surprised. Jolted? But angry? Well, no, but... So the anger came when you expected to find someone to blame. And when you found no one, the anger had nowhere to go. Interesting, yes?" James frowned. "What are you? Some kind of philosopher?" "I'm someone who sits by a lake and watches people yell at empty boats. You'd be surprised how often it happens." "I wasn't yelling at..." James stopped. "Okay, what's your point?" "My point is a question. How many of the boats that crash into you each day are actually empty?" "I have no idea what that means." The old man gestured to the bench. "Come, sit. Your anger isn't going anywhere by paddling in circles. Something in his tone made James comply. He dragged his kayak onto shore and sat down, wary but curious. "Tell me about your day," the old man said. James found himself talking. He told him everything. The fender bender, his boss's public humiliation, the drivers, the insurance company. As he spoke, he felt the familiar surge of righteous indignation. The old man listened without interrupting. When James finished, he sat silent for a long moment. "So," he finally said, "many boats crashed into you today." "Exactly. And, in each case, you knew exactly who to blame." "Yes, finally, someone who gets it. But tell me the driver who ended you. Did he wake up this morning planning to hit your car?" James faltered. "Well, no, probably not. Your boss. When she criticized you, do you think she was deliberately trying to hurt you? Or was she perhaps having a terrible day herself, reacting from her own pain?" "I don't know. Maybe. But that doesn't make it okay." "No," the old man agreed. "It doesn't make it okay, but it makes it an empty boat." "You've lost me again." The old man tossed a pebble into the water. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles. "An empty boat," he said, "is any person who crashes into you without truly seeing you. They are driven by their own currents. Fear, pain, stress, ignorance. They drift into you not because you deserve it, but because you happen to be in their path. Your boss was not attacking James the person. She was reacting from her own inner storm. The driver was not cutting you off deliberately. He was lost in his own hurry, his own world. They are all empty boats, my friend. And you cannot be angry at an empty boat for being moved by forces you cannot see." James felt something shift in his chest, but he fought it. "So I'm just supposed to let people treat me like garbage?" "I didn't say that. There is a difference between acceptance and being a doormat. You can set boundaries without rage. You can respond without reacting. You can protect yourself without needing to punish others. But the anger feels righteous. It feels like standing up for myself." "Does it? After all your anger today, did anything improve? Did your car fix itself? Did your boss apologize? Did the traffic part before you?" James said nothing. "Anger," the old man continued, "is not the same as strength. Often, it is weakness pretending to be power. It is the ego saying, 'I have been wronged, and this wrongness must be acknowledged.' But the universe does not care about your ego's bookkeeping." "That's harsh. Is it, or is it freeing?" The old man turned to face James fully. "Every moment you spend angry at an empty boat is a moment you lose from your life. And your life is nothing but moments. You are hemorrhaging them, bleeding them into the lake. And for what? For the satisfaction of being right? For the pleasure of nursing your grievances?" James felt exposed. "So what am I supposed to do? Just become some emotionless robot?" No. Feel everything. Feel the jolt when the boat hits you. Feel the surprise, the pain, even the initial flash of anger. But then, and this is the key, recognize the boat is empty. See that the person who hurts you is themselves hurting. See that they are driven by forces you cannot control. And then, let it pass through you like water through a net. Let it pass. Just like that. Not just like that. It takes practice. It takes the same effort you currently put into holding on to anger and redirecting it into letting go." He paused. "Tell me, when you're lying in bed tonight, replaying all the ways you were wrong today, who suffers?" "I do," James admitted quietly. "Yes, you do. You are the only one. They are living their lives, probably not thinking about you at all. But you are there, torturing yourself with reruns of old pain. You are both the prisoner and the jailer." The sun was lower now, turning the water into liquid copper. In the distance, the empty rowboat drifted further away, unconcerned. "I don't know how to not be angry, James said, surprised by the crack in his voice. I don't know how to just let things go. Then start smaller. Start with one empty boat. The next time someone bumps into you, literally or metaphorically, pause before you react. Ask yourself, is this boat empty? Is this person even seeing me? Or are they just drifting on their own current? You don't have to forgive them. You don't have to like what happened. You just have to recognize that your anger changes nothing except your own inner weather. And if I recognize it's an empty boat, then what? Then you do what you did with the rowboat just now. You push it away and continue paddling. You don't invite it into your kayak. You don't tie yourself to it. You don't follow it around the lake demanding an apology. You just let it drift on. James watched a leaf float past, carried by invisible current. My therapist has been trying to tell me something like this for months. Wise woman. I kept telling her it was everyone else's problem. That if people would just treat me with respect, I wouldn't have to be angry. Ah, yes, the ancient argument. The world must change so I can be at peace. How is that working for you? James almost laughed. It came out more like a sigh. Terribly. Of course, because you've given all your power away. You've made your inner weather dependent on outer circumstances. You've become a leaf, blown about by every wind of rudeness. Meanwhile, you could be a stone, letting the water flow around you. A stone sounds cold. Then be a willow, flexible, bending but not breaking. The metaphor doesn't matter. What matters is this: your peace cannot depend on other people's behavior. If it does, you will never know peace. There will always be another empty boat. They sat in silence. James felt the anger that had seemed so solid begin to loosen, like ice cracking at spring's first touch. I spent all day being angry, he said finally. I wasted the whole day. No, the old man corrected gently. You spent all day learning. Now you know what anger costs. Now you can choose differently. Just like that? Just like this moment, right now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just this moment. Choose differently right now. That's all any of us can ever do. James looked out at the lake, at the empty rowboat now far in the distance, and felt something inside him unclench. The day had still happened. The frustrations were still real, but somehow, they no longer felt like personal attacks. They felt like weather unpleasant, but not meaningful, not about him. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me. Thank the empty boat. It was a perfect teacher. James stood, preparing to get back in his kayak. Will you be here next time? Maybe, maybe not, but the lesson will be here. Empty boats will keep finding you until you learn to see them for what they are. As James pushed off from shore, the old man called out, Remember, you are also sometimes an empty boat to others. James froze mid-paddle. The thought had never occurred to him. How many times had he crashed into someone else, driven by his own invisible currents? How many people had he failed to see because he was too caught up in his own storm? The realization was humbling and strangely liberating. He paddled out into the golden water, and for the first time all day, he actually saw the lake, the light, the birds, the gentle lap of water against his kayak. He saw it all without the filter of anger, without the constant narrative of grievance. Another kayaker passed, a little too close, creating a wake that rocked James's boat. He felt the familiar spark of irritation rise. Then he paused. Empty boat, he thought. Just an empty boat. The anger dissipated like mist, and in its place, something unexpected. Space. Room to breathe. Room to choose. He smiled and kept paddling, lighter than he'd been in years, the lake holding him up like it had been waiting for him to finally let it. The bamboo that didn't grow for 5 years. In a quiet village nestled between misty mountains, there lived a young farmer named Kenji, who had grown weary of his life. Every day felt the same: planting rice, tending crops, watching the same sun rise and set over the same tired fields. He had dreams once, ambitions that burned bright, but year after year of ordinary work had dulled that fire to barely glowing embers. One autumn evening, as golden leaves danced through the air, an old monk passed through the village. His weathered face carried the kind of peace that Kenji had never known. The young farmer, desperate for answers, approached him. "Master," Kenji said, bowing deeply, "I work hard every day, but my life feels empty. I see no progress, no meaning. How do I find purpose?" The monk studied Kenji, with eyes that seemed to look through him rather than at him. After a long silence, he reached into his worn traveling bag and pulled out a small cloth pouch. Inside were seeds, bamboo seeds. "Plant these in the eastern corner of your field," the monk said. "Water them every day. Care for them with devotion. But know this: these seeds will test everything you believe about patience, faith, and work that shapes our lives." "How long until they grow?" Kenji asked. The monk smiled mysteriously. "That depends entirely on you." And with that cryptic answer, he continued on his journey. The next morning, filled with curious hope, Kenji prepared the soil in the eastern corner of his field. He planted the bamboo seeds carefully, watered them thoroughly, and waited. Days passed, then weeks. He watered them every single morning, just as the monk had instructed. Nothing happened. The first month came and went. The seeds showed no sign of life. No sprouts, no shoots, nothing but bare earth. Kenji's neighbors began to notice his ritual. "Still watering that empty patch?" his neighbor Hiro called out, laughing. "There's nothing there, Kenji. You're wasting your time and water." But Kenji remembered the monk's words and continued watering. 3 months passed. The winter came, harsh and cold. Kenji's hands cracked and bled from the freezing water. But each morning, before tending to his other crops, he would water the bamboo seeds. His wife, Yuki, grew concerned. "Husband, perhaps the seeds were bad. Perhaps it's time to plant something else there. Something that will actually grow." Kenji felt doubt creeping into his heart. But something deeper, a stubborn hope he couldn't explain, kept him going. "I will continue," he said softly. 6 months. Still nothing. His neighbors no longer laughed. They pitied him. They whispered that perhaps the young farmer had lost his mind, wasting precious water and time on dead seeds. Even his own father came to him. "Son, this is foolishness. I have farmed for 50 years. Those seeds are dead. You must accept this and move on." That night, Kenji sat beside the empty patch of earth, staring at the ground that showed no evidence of his efforts. Tears of frustration rolled down his cheeks. He thought about giving up. He thought about filling this corner with rice instead. But as he sat there in the darkness, he remembered the monk's peaceful face, and something inside him refused to surrender. 1 year passed, then 2 years. Kenji became the village joke. Children would run by and ask, "Farmer Kenji, has your invisible bamboo grown today?" Adults shook their heads in disapproval at the waste, but Kenji had stopped listening to them. The daily ritual of watering the seeds had become something else entirely: a meditation, a practice of faith when faith made no sense. In the 3rd year, something shifted inside Kenji. He no longer watered the seeds hoping for results. He watered them because the act itself had become meaningful. Each morning, as he poured water on that seemingly barren ground, he felt himself growing not the bamboo, but something inside his own heart. Patience he never knew he possessed. Dedication that ran deeper than immediate rewards. Faith that existed independent of evidence. 4 years. Kenji had grown quieter, more peaceful. His other crops flourished because he tended them with the same mindful attention he gave the bamboo seeds. His wife noticed he no longer seemed frustrated or anxious. He had changed, though she couldn't quite explain how. 5 years passed since the day Kenji planted those seeds. 5 years of daily watering, with nothing to show for it. Most people in the village had forgotten about his strange ritual, though some still considered it evidence of harmless madness. Then, on an ordinary morning in the 5th spring, as Kenji approached the eastern corner with his water bucket, he stopped dead in his tracks. A tiny green shoot had broken through the soil. His hands trembled as he set down the bucket. He knelt down, barely breathing, afraid that if he blinked, it might disappear. But it was real. After 5 years of invisible progress, the bamboo had finally emerged. Kenji watered the shoot, with tears streaming down his face. That day, he waited eagerly to see what would happen next. The following morning, he rushed to the bamboo corner before dawn. The shoot had grown. Not just a little, it had grown nearly 2 feet overnight. Kenji could hardly believe his eyes. The next day, it grew another 3 feet, then 4 feet, then 6 feet. Within just 6 weeks, the bamboo had grown almost 90 feet tall, a towering, magnificent grove that could be seen from every corner of the village. The neighbors who had mocked him came to stare in wonder. "It's a miracle," they exclaimed. "How did it grow so fast? What's your secret?" But Kenji understood what they couldn't see. The bamboo hadn't grown 90 feet in 6 weeks. It had been growing for 5 years underground, invisible, developing a massive root system that spread wide and deep beneath the earth. All that time, when nothing seemed to be happening, everything was happening. The bamboo was building the foundation that would allow it to soar. News of the miraculous bamboo spread throughout the region. People traveled from distant villages to see it. And one day, the old monk returned. He found Kenji sitting peacefully beneath the bamboo grove, the towering stalks swaying gently in the breeze, creating a sound like whispered wisdom. "Master," Kenji said, bowing deeply, "thank you for the gift. But I realize now the bamboo was never the real gift, was it?" The monk smiled, settling down beside him. "Tell me what you've learned." Kenji looked up at the impossible height of the bamboo he'd watched grow from nothing. "For 5 years, I saw no results from my efforts. I was tested every single day. My faith was challenged, my commitment questioned. But during those 5 years, I wasn't just waiting for bamboo to grow. I was growing. I was building roots in my own life. Patience, dedication, faith, peace. Those roots were invisible, just like the bamboo's roots, but they were real." He paused, watching a bird land on one of the tall stalks. "I used to think progress meant seeing immediate results. I thought if I couldn't see change wasn't happening. But now, I understand the most important growth happens in the darkness, underground, invisible to everyone, including ourselves. And if we give up because we can't see it, we abandon our dreams right before the breakthrough." The monk nodded slowly. "And what else?" "The bamboo couldn't grow 90 feet in 6 weeks without first growing deep roots for 5 years. The same is true for anything meaningful in life. Quick success without foundation collapses easily, but success built on years of invisible preparation becomes unshakable. My neighbors see 6 weeks of growth. Only, I know about the 5 years of preparation." "You have learned well," the monk said. "Most people give up after a few months of not seeing results. They switch from dream to dream, never staying long enough to build the roots that would allow them to soar. They want the 6 weeks of visible growth without earning the 5 years of invisible foundation." Kenji nodded. "I almost gave up so many times. Every day I wanted to quit. But you didn't. And that's what made all the difference. Not talent, not luck, not special knowledge. Just the simple act of showing up every day, even when it seemed pointless. Especially when it seemed pointless." The two sat in comfortable silence as the afternoon sun filtered through the by-dot. Bamboo leaves, creating dancing patterns of light and shadow. Finally, Kenji spoke again. "Master, there's something else I've realized. The bamboo didn't grow for my benefit, did it? It grew because I needed to become the kind of person who could tend something for 5 years without reward. The real miracle wasn't the bamboo, it was who I became while watering it. The monk's eyes sparkled with approval. Now you truly understand. The universe doesn't test us with obstacles to punish us. It tests us to grow us. Every difficulty, every period of waiting, every moment when nothing seems to be happening. These are the times when our roots are spreading, when our foundation is forming, when we're becoming capable of sustaining the success that will eventually arrive. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the monk prepared to continue his journey. Before leaving, he turned to Kenji one last time. Remember this, young farmer. Your bamboo grove will become famous. People will come from everywhere to see it and ask your secret. When they do, don't tell them about the 6 weeks. Tell them about the 5 years. Tell them about the mornings when you wanted to quit. Tell them about the days when everyone called you a fool. Tell them that the secret to reaching great heights is being willing to grow deep roots first, even when no one can see them, even when you can't see them yourself. Kenji bowed deeply as the monk walked away, disappearing into the gathering dusk. He turned back to his bamboo grove, now silhouetted against the darkening sky, each stalk standing tall and strong. From that day forward, Kenji did exactly as the monk suggested. When people came to marvel at his bamboo and ask for the secret to such extraordinary growth, he would smile and say, "The secret is simple. It didn't grow for 5 years, and I watered it anyway." Many would walk away, confused, wanting a quicker answer, an easier method, but a precious few would understand. Their eyes would light up with recognition, and they would nod slowly, seeing in the bamboo grove a reflection of their own invisible struggles, their own underground growth, their own coming breakthrough that required only one thing: not giving up before the miracle arrives. And those few would go home and water their own seeds, their dreams, their businesses, their skills, their relationships, their character, knowing now that invisible growth is still growth, that patience is power, and that the deepest roots produce the highest reach. The bamboo that didn't grow for 5 years taught the village its greatest lesson. The time you spend building foundations in the darkness is never wasted. It's preparing you for the moment when everything finally breaks through the surface and reaches toward the sky. Some seeds take longer to sprout than others, but the waiting, the daily care, the faith when there's no evidence, that's not time lost. That's roots growing deep, preparing for the extraordinary growth that's coming. The question is never whether you're growing. The question is only whether you'll keep watering your seeds long enough to find out what you're truly capable of becoming.